The silk blouse clung to my skin like a second layer, soaked through with sweat that trickled down my spine in steady rivulets. I stood in the narrow elevator of the Romano building, watching the numbers climb with agonizing slowness. 12, 13, 14. Each floor brought me closer to a meeting I'd been dreading for 3 weeks, ever since the lawyer had called to inform me that my father's debts weren't buried with him. The air in the elevator was stifling, thick and humid despite the late October date. I could smell my own perfume mixing with sweat, the floral notes turning sour in the heat. My fingers drummed against the leather portfolio I carried, a nervous rhythm I couldn't control. Inside were documents I barely understood, property deeds with my father's signature, loan agreements stamped with seals I'd never seen before, and a single business card with an address and a time. Victor Romano, 3 UMID p.m. Come alone. The elevator lurched to a stop on the 23rd floor, and the doors slid open with a mechanical wheeze. The hallway beyond was mercifully cooler, all dark marble floors and cream walls with recessed lighting that cast everything in a warm, expensive glow. At the far end, a frosted glass door bore simple gold lettering, Romano Enterprises. I forced myself to walk forward, my heels clicking too loudly in the silence. The door opened before I could knock, revealing a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair pulled into a severe bun. Her dark eyes assessed me in one sweeping glance, taking in my wrinkled blouse, my slightly smudged makeup, the way my hand trembled as I clutched the portfolio. "Miss Bennett?" she said, her voice carrying a faint Italian accent that turned the words into something almost musical. "Mr. Romano is expecting you. However, I must apologize. Our air conditioning system has malfunctioned. We're working to repair it. But in the meantime, I'm afraid the office is rather uncomfortable." Uncomfortable seemed like an understatement. The moment I stepped through the door, heat wrapped around me like a physical force. It had to be at least 90 degrees inside, maybe more. The receptionist's desk was positioned near a large window, and I could see her face was flushed, a small electric fan doing nothing to combat the oppressive warmth. "Mr. Romano had an unexpected call," she continued, gesturing toward a closed door on the left. "He asked that you wait in his private office. He shouldn't be more than 10 minutes. Please, make yourself comfortable. There's water in the small refrigerator behind his desk if you need it." She opened the door and ushered me into a space that stole what little breath I had left. Victor Romano's office was enormous, easily the size of my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows dominated 2 walls, offering a panoramic view of the city sprawling below. The furniture was all dark wood and leather, expensive but understated. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with what looked like first editions in Italian and English. A massive desk sat near the windows, its surface clear except for a sleek laptop and a single photograph in a silver frame. But what struck me most was the heat. It was even worse in here, the sunlight streaming through those beautiful windows turning the office into a greenhouse. I could feel sweat beading on my forehead, my upper lip, the back of my neck. My blouse was already plastered to my skin, and I'd only been in the room for 30 seconds. "I'll let Mr. Romano know you've arrived," the receptionist said, already backing toward the door. "Again, my apologies for the temperature. Please, help yourself to water." The door closed with a soft click, and I was alone. I set the portfolio on one of the leather chairs facing the desk and moved to the windows, hoping for cooler air near the glass. No such luck. If anything, it was hotter here, the sun beating down mercilessly. I could see my reflection in the window, my dark hair already starting to escape its neat bun, my cream blouse showing damp patches under my arms and along my spine. This was insane. How could anyone work in these conditions? I grabbed a bottle of water from the small refrigerator behind the desk, pressing the cold plastic against my forehead before opening it and taking a long drink. The water helped marginally, but within seconds I could feel sweat replacing what I'd drunk. I glanced at my watch. 3:05. He'd said 10 minutes, which meant I had at least 5 more minutes of this torture. My blouse was now completely soaked, clinging to every curve. I could see the outline of my bra through the fabric, and my pencil skirt felt like it was suffocating my legs. The thought came unbidden. I should just take something off, just for a few minutes to cool down. It's not like anyone's here. I hesitated, glancing toward the closed door. The receptionist had said he was on a call, 10 minutes at least, and I was alone in this sauna of an office, cooking in my own clothes. Logic warred with propriety for approximately 3 seconds before the heat won. I unbuttoned my blouse with trembling fingers, peeling the wet silk away from my skin. The relief was immediate and intense. Cool air, minimal as it was, touched my damp skin, and I actually moaned at the sensation. But it wasn't enough. The skirt had to go too. It was wool, purchased specifically for this meeting because I'd wanted to look professional. Now it felt like wearing a blanket wrapped around my legs. I unzipped it and let it pool at my feet, stepping out of it and my heels in one motion. Standing in Victor Romano's office in nothing but my bra and panties should have felt scandalous. Instead, it felt like survival. I moved back to the windows, pressing my hot forehead against the slightly cooler glass, letting my eyes close for just a moment. This was temporary, just a few minutes to cool down before he arrived. I'd hear the door open, I'd have time to dress, no one would ever know. I thought I was alone. The voice came from behind me, deep and accented and entirely too close. My eyes flew open and I spun around, my heart launching into my throat. Victor Romano stood less than 10 feet away, having apparently materialized from thin air. Or more accurately, I realized with horror, from a second door I hadn't noticed, partially hidden behind the bookshelves. It must have led to another part of the suite. He was taller than I'd expected, at least 6'2", with the kind of build that spoke of regular gym time and careful discipline. His dark hair was styled back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and strong lines. A perfectly tailored charcoal suit emphasized broad shoulders, and his eyes, dark as espresso, were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Those eyes swept over me once, taking in my near-naked state with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not shock, exactly. Not anger. Something else entirely. Something that made heat pool in my stomach for reasons that had nothing to do with the temperature. I should have screamed. Should have grabbed my clothes and covered myself. Should have stammered out an apology or an explanation, or literally anything. Instead, I heard myself say, calm as if we were discussing the weather, I thought I was alone. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or was it admiration? His lips curved into the barest suggestion of a smile. Clearly, he said, his Italian accent wrapping around the word like velvet. And clearly my air conditioning has failed at the most inopportune moment. He moved then, crossing to his desk with fluid grace, deliberately turning his back to me. Perhaps you should dress, Miss Bennett. We have business to discuss. His casual tone, the way he'd so smoothly given me privacy, somehow made the situation less mortifying. I grabbed my clothes with shaking hands, pulling on the damp blouse and skirt as quickly as I could. My fingers fumbled with buttons and zippers, and I was acutely aware of him standing there, his back still turned, giving me the courtesy I hadn't expected. I apologize for the state of the office, he continued, his voice carrying easily across the space. The air conditioning system was sabotaged this morning, a message from certain parties who are displeased with some of my recent business decisions. Sabotaged. The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. This wasn't just a broken air conditioner. This was a threat, a show of power, a reminder that Victor Romano existed in a world where climate control could be a weapon. I'm dressed, I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. He turned to face me, and I braced myself for mockery or inappropriate comments. Instead, He simply gestured to one of the leather chairs. "Please sit. Would you like more water? I have some in my private refrigerator that's actually cold." I nodded, not trusting my voice. He retrieved 2 bottles, handing me one before taking the seat opposite rather than behind his desk. The gesture felt significant somehow. A removal of the power dynamic that the desk would have created. "Now then," he said, unscrewing his water bottle with deliberate care. "Let's discuss your father's debts, Miss Bennett. And perhaps, if you're amenable, we can find a solution that benefits us both." The way he said benefits made something clench low in my stomach. I took a long drink of water, buying myself time to think. This meeting had already gone so far off script, I wasn't sure what script we were even following anymore. But one thing was certain. Victor Romano had seen me at my most vulnerable, literally stripped bare. And instead of using that vulnerability against me, he'd given me back my dignity. That meant something. I just wasn't sure what yet. "I'm listening," I said, meeting his dark gaze with more courage than I felt. "Tell me what you have in mind." The water bottle sweated in my hands as Victor Romano outlined what my father had really been involved in. Each revelation hit like a physical blow, pieces of a puzzle I hadn't even known existed clicking into horrible, perfect place. "Your father, Thomas Bennett, was a talented man," Victor said, his voice neutral but not unkind. "He had a gift for moving money, for making paper trails disappear, for creating accounts that couldn't be traced. For 15 years, he worked for various organizations throughout the city, including mine." "He was an accountant," I said weakly, though I already knew where this was going. "He had a small practice, tax preparation, bookkeeping for local businesses." "He was both," Victor corrected gently. "The legitimate practice was real, but it was also perfect cover for his other work. And he was very, very good at that other work." I set the water bottle on the small table between us with trembling hands. "The debts. How much?" $2.3 million. The number was so large it didn't even sound real. I laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that echoed in the cavernous office. "That's impossible. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have any money. My father left me 3 properties, all of which are mortgaged to hell, and a car that's worth maybe $5,000. "I'm aware." Victor leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. Even in the oppressive heat, he looked completely composed, not a hair out of place. "The debts are held by 5 different parties. I've already purchased 4 of them." My head snapped up. "You bought my father's debts?" "I consolidated them. It's cleaner this way, simpler. Rather than dealing with 5 different creditors, you now deal with one. Me." "And the 5th? His expression darkened almost imperceptibly. "The Castellano family. Marco Castellano, specifically. He's proving, difficult about selling." That name meant something. I'd seen it in the news, always in connection with words like alleged and suspected, and never formally charged. The Castellanos were old money and old power, the kind of family that appeared in society pages while rumors swirled about their true business. "Why would you do this?" I asked, confusion warring with suspicion. "Buy up my father's debts? You don't know me. And based on what you've just told me, my father's dead. You can't get money from a corpse." "No," Victor agreed. "But I can get something more valuable from his daughter." There it was, the catch, the real reason for this meeting. I sat up straighter, bracing myself for whatever impossible demand was coming. "What do you want?" "Your expertise." I blinked. "My what?" "You have a master's degree in finance from Columbia," he said. And I realized with a chill that he'd researched me. Thoroughly. "You worked for 3 years at Morrison & Wade, one of the most prestigious investment firms in the city. You're good with numbers, excellent with analysis, and you have a talent for seeing patterns others miss." Your father taught you well. I left Morrison and Wade 2 years ago, I pointed out. I've been working freelance ever since. Small contracts, independent clients. Nothing that would interest someone like you. You left because your boss made unwanted advances, and the firm chose to protect him rather than you, Victor said quietly. You've been working freelance because no one wants to hire the woman who caused trouble at Morrison and Wade, even though you did nothing wrong. Heat that had nothing to do with the temperature flooded my cheeks. How do you? I make it my business to know things. He sat back, his dark eyes never leaving mine. Here's what I'm proposing, Miss Bennett. You come work for me. Legitimate work. Analyzing my legitimate businesses, finding inefficiencies, maximizing returns. Nothing illegal. Nothing that would compromise your ethics. In exchange, I forgive your father's debts. All of them, including the portion held by Castellano, which I'll purchase regardless of his reluctance. It was too good to be true. It had to be. And if I say no, then I'll work with you to create a payment plan, he said simply. It won't be pleasant, and it will take you the rest of your life to pay off. But I'm not a monster, Miss Bennett. I won't force you into anything you don't want. The casual way he said it, the absolute certainty in his voice, made me believe him, which was insane. I was sitting in a mob boss's office having been caught naked less than 30 minutes ago, and I was actually considering his offer. Why me specifically? I asked. Surely you have people who do this kind of work already. I do. But I need someone who's outside the usual circles. Someone who isn't connected to the families. Who doesn't have loyalties or obligations that might cloud their judgment. Someone who understands the legitimate business world and can help me expand into it more completely. Someone you have leverage over, I said bluntly. Someone who owes you. Yes? He admitted without hesitation. That too. I won't lie to you, Miss Bennett. Having leverage is useful, but I'm offering you a real job with real pay. Market rate, full benefits, the opportunity to use your skills for something meaningful. And in return, you get your freedom from a debt you never chose to inherit. I stood, needing to move, to think. The heat pressed down on me from all sides, making it hard to breathe, hard to focus. I moved to the windows again, staring out at the city without really seeing it. Behind me, I heard Victor move. A moment later, there was a soft click and a blessed rush of cool air. I turned to see him standing by a wall panel I hadn't noticed, what was apparently a manual override for the air conditioning. It works, I said stupidly. I had it fixed an hour ago, he admitted, something that might have been guilt crossing his features. I wanted to see how you'd handle discomfort, how you'd react under pressure. I'm sorry. That was manipulative. You're damn right it was. Anger flared, hot and bright. You put me in an impossible situation, watched me strip down like some kind of test, and now you're admitting it was all planned? Not all of it. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. I planned the heat. I didn't plan on you being brave enough or practical enough to remove your clothes. I didn't plan on admiring that courage, that complete lack of pretense. Most people would have suffered in silence, trying to maintain appearances. You did what made sense. So this was all what? An interview? My hands clenched into fists. Strip down and show me how you handle adversity? An interview, yes. Strip down, no. His voice softened. That was entirely you, Miss Bennett, and it told me more about who you are than any resume ever could. You're practical, you're brave, you think clearly under pressure, and you're not bound by conventional expectations of what's proper. Those are exactly the qualities I need. The cool air was clearing my head, helping me think past the anger and embarrassment. If I do this, if I take the job, I need parameters. Clear boundaries about what's legal and what's not. I won't be part of anything criminal. Agreed. And I need protection. If I'm working for you, if your name is attached to mine, that makes me a target for your enemies, the Castellanos, whoever else might have problems with you. You'll have security, drivers, escorts when needed, a system in place to ensure your safety. I need it in writing. Contract, terms, everything spelled out clearly. My lawyer will have it ready by tomorrow. I studied his face, looking for deception, for the trap I was certain had to be there. But all I saw was patience and a strange sort of respect. He was treating me like an equal, like a professional, despite having seen me in my underwear less than an hour ago. One more thing, I said. That moment, when you walked in and found me, undressed, we never speak of it again. It didn't happen. It's erased from both our memories. Something flickered in his dark eyes. If that's what you want. It is. Then consider it forgotten. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Miss Bennett? I looked at his hand, at the strong fingers and the simple platinum watch on his wrist, at the olive skin that spoke of Mediterranean heritage. This was a devil's bargain, I was sure of it. Working for Victor Romano would change my life in ways I couldn't predict. But the alternative was drowning in debt I'd never created, spending the rest of my life paying for my father's sins. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, his fingers closing around mine with surprising gentleness. We have a deal, Mr. Romano. Victor, he corrected, a smile playing at his lips. If we're going to be working together, we should be on a first-name basis. And please, call me if you have any questions before tomorrow. My receptionist will give you my direct line. He released my hand, but the warmth of his touch lingered. I gathered my portfolio, suddenly desperate to escape this office, and the confusing tangle of emotions swirling in my chest. Miss Bennett, Victor called as I reached the door. I turned back. Isa, he said, using my first name for the first time. For what it's worth, your courage today was impressive. Not everyone could have handled that situation with such grace. I didn't trust myself to respond, so I simply nodded and walked out, past the sympathetic receptionist, into the blessedly cool hallway. It wasn't until I was in the elevator, watching the numbers descend, that I allowed myself to fully process what had just happened. I'd gone to Victor Romano's office expecting to beg for mercy on debts I couldn't pay. Instead, I'd been caught naked, offered a job, and somehow walked away feeling like I'd gained the upper hand. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Looking forward to working with you. V. I stared at the message, at the simple initial that somehow felt intimate. This was crazy. This was dangerous. This was probably the worst decision I'd ever made.
So why did part of me feel like it might also be the best? The contract arrived at my apartment the next morning, delivered by a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself simply as Mr. Romano's attorney. It was 37 pages of dense legal language, but 3 things were immediately clear. The salary was triple what I'd made at Morrison & Wade. The benefits were better than anything I'd seen in the private sector, and there was a clause that made my breath catch. Employee agrees to maintain absolute confidentiality regarding all business matters, both legitimate and otherwise, that may come to her attention during the course of her employment. In exchange, employer guarantees that employee will never be asked to participate in, facilitate, or have direct knowledge of any illegal activities. It was a shield and a cage rolled into one. Victor was protecting me from his world while binding me to silence about it. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something close to relief. He was keeping his word. I signed on the 15th page and called the number at the bottom of the contract. Romano Enterprises. The receptionist's voice was warm but professional. This is Isa Bennett. I'd like to speak with Victor Romano, please. One moment, Miss Bennett. The hold music was classical,
something Italian and elegant that I didn't recognize. Then Victor's voice, deeper than I remembered. Isa, I trust you received the contract? I'm looking at it now. It's very thorough. I wanted no room for misunderstanding. A pause. Do you have questions? Just one. When do I start? The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. When he spoke again, I could hear the smile in his voice. Monday, 9 a.m., and Isa, thank you. For what? For trusting me. The call ended before I could respond. I set the phone down and looked around my small apartment, at the second-hand furniture and the photographs of my father that I'd never had the heart to take down. He smiled at me from the mantel, forever frozen at age 45, before whatever had happened to turn him into someone I'd never really known. I hope I'm doing the right thing, Dad, I whispered to his picture. I hope you'd understand. The photograph didn't answer, but in the afternoon light, his smile almost looked approving. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I dressed carefully in a navy suit that was professional without being stuffy, my hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. The car Victor had promised was waiting outside my building at 8:30, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows and a driver who opened my door with practiced courtesy. Miss Bennett, I'm Carlo. I'll be your primary driver. He was perhaps 50, with silver-streaked dark hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. Something about him immediately put me at ease. Thank you, Carlo. You can call me Isa. As you wish, Miss Isa. He closed my door and moved around to the driver's seat. Mr. Romano asked me to inform you that your office is being prepared this morning. He'd like to meet with you first to discuss your initial projects. My office. The words sent a little thrill through me. After 2 years of working from my tiny apartment, having an actual office felt like a luxury. The Romano building looked different in morning light, the glass facade gleaming in the October sun. Carlo dropped me at the entrance where a different receptionist greeted me. Miss Bennett, welcome. I'm Lucia. Mr. Romano is expecting you. She handed me a badge on a lanyard. This will give you access to the executive floor and your office on 22. The elevator is just through there. I clipped the badge to my suit jacket and headed for the elevator, my heart hammering. The ride up was smooth and quiet, giving me time to second-guess every decision that had led me here. The 23rd floor looked different with the air conditioning working. The temperature was perfect, the lighting warm and inviting. Victor's office door was open, and I could see him at his desk, focused on something on his laptop. He ditched the jacket, his white shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, and I noticed for the first time the tattoo that marked his left forearm. Dark script in what looked like Italian, partially hidden by his watch. I knocked lightly on the door frame. He looked up, and something shifted in his expression. Warmth, perhaps. Or was it possession? Isa, perfect timing, come in. I stepped into the office where I'd been caught naked just 4 days ago, half expecting to feel embarrassed. Instead, I felt oddly empowered. I'd survived that mortification and come out the other side with a job and my debt forgiven. If anything, the memory was proof of my resilience. Coffee? Victor asked, gesturing to a service cart by the windows. Or tea? I wasn't sure of your preference. Coffee, black, please. He poured 2 cups with practiced efficiency, handing me one before gesturing to the seating area rather than the formal chairs before his desk. More of that deliberate removal of power dynamics. Your office is 3 floors down, he began, settling into the chair across from me. Corner office, full windows, everything you should need. But I wanted to meet with you first to discuss what I'm hoping you'll focus on. I pulled out a notebook, ready to take notes. Professional, competent. Everything I'd been before Morrison and Wade had tried to destroy my reputation. I have 17 legitimate businesses, Victor continued. Real estate development, import-export, several restaurants, a hotel, a nightclub, and various smaller ventures. They're all profitable, but I know they could be more efficient. I want you to audit them, find the weak points, recommend changes. That's a substantial undertaking. It could take months. I'm aware. Start with the restaurants. They're smaller, more manageable. Use them to get a feel for how I operate, how my people work. Then we'll move to the larger concerns. And the other businesses? I asked carefully. The ones that aren't in the portfolio you'll give me? His dark eyes met mine steadily. You'll never see documentation on those. You'll never be in meetings about them. You'll never have direct knowledge of them. That was the agreement. But I'll know they exist. You already know they exist. He set his coffee down. Issa, I won't insult your intelligence by pretending I'm a simple businessman. You know what I am. What I'm offering you is complete separation from that aspect of my life. You work on the legitimate side. You make good money. You use your skills for something meaningful, and you never have to compromise your ethics. It should have felt like a lie. Instead, it felt like the most honest thing anyone had said to me in years. Okay, I said. Show me the restaurants. The smile he gave me was genuinely pleased. I'll do better than that. I'll take you to them. We'll visit all 5 this week. You can meet the managers, see the operations firsthand, starting tomorrow. Tomorrow? Unless you have other plans? I didn't. I hadn't had plans beyond surviving for so long that the idea of scheduling something beyond the next day felt foreign. Tomorrow works. Good. Victor stood, and I realized our meeting was over. Lucia will show you to your office and get you set up with everything you need. If you have questions, my direct line is already programmed into your phone. My phone? He gestured to a slim box on the table I hadn't noticed. Inside was the latest model smartphone, already activated. Company phone, more secure than your personal device, also more convenient for staying in touch. The casual way he'd arranged my life, anticipated my needs, should have felt controlling. Instead, it felt cared for, which was dangerous thinking. Thank you, I said, picking up the box. I'll make sure to justify your investment. You already have. His voice stopped me at the door. By saying yes, by choosing to trust me. That's worth more than you know. I looked back at him, at this complicated, dangerous man who seemed determined to prove he was more than his reputation. Let's hope I don't regret it. You won't. The certainty in his voice was absolute. I promise you that, Issa. You won't regret this. As I followed Lucia to my new office, I found myself hoping he was right. My office was everything he'd promised and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a massive desk already equipped with top-of-the-line computer equipment, comfortable furniture, and shelves waiting to be filled with books and files. It was professional and elegant, with none of the cold sterility I'd expected. On the desk was a single item that hadn't come with the standard office furniture. A small bronze statue of a lion, regal and powerful, watching over its domain. The card beneath it read, "For the bravest person I know." V. I picked up the lion, feeling the weight of it in my palm, and thought about courage and choices and the strange path that had led me here. Victor Romano had seen me at my most vulnerable and somehow found strength there. Maybe, just maybe, he was right. Maybe I was braver than I knew, and maybe working for him would prove it. And the restaurants were revelations, each one offering a glimpse into how Victor Romano operated in the legitimate world. The first was Girasole, an upscale Italian place in the financial district, where brokers closed deals over $40 pasta. The second was Nonna's Kitchen, a family-style spot in Little Italy that served food that made me weep with how good it was. The third was Sapphire, a trendy fusion restaurant in Soho where the beautiful people went to be seen. Victor took me to each one personally, introducing me to managers and staff, sitting with me through tastings, explaining his vision for each location. And I watched, learned, took copious notes. But more than that, I watched him. With the staff, he was firm but fair, demanding excellence without being cruel. He knew everyone's names, asked about their families, noticed when someone seemed off. At Nona's kitchen, he spent 15 minutes talking to a busboy about his college applications, offering advice and connections without being asked. "You're good with people," I observed as we left the third restaurant. Actually good, not just fake polite. "My grandfather taught me that respect flows both ways," he said, holding the car door open for me. "These people work hard to make my businesses successful. The least I can do is treat them like human beings." "Your grandfather was in the business too?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Victor settled into the seat beside me, and Carlo pulled smoothly into traffic. He built the foundation that I've expanded. But he always said that power without honor is just tyranny. That even in our world, there are rules, lines that shouldn't be crossed. Like? He was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes distant. "Family is sacred. Children are off limits always. Women are to be protected, not used. Debts are honored, but mercy is shown when it's earned. And you never, ever hurt innocent people who aren't part of the game." The rules of a world I'd never wanted to understand, laid out like commandments. "And everyone follows these rules?" "No." His voice hardened. "Some people have forgotten what it means to have honor. The Castellanos, for instance. They see only profit, only power. They've forgotten the old ways. The ones who won't sell you my father's debt. The same." He turned to face me fully. "Marco Castellano is going to be a problem, Isa. Not just for me, but potentially for you. He knows I've hired you, knows I've consolidated your father's other debts. He'll see that as a threat." "Why?" "Because your father knew things about the Castellanos' operations. Information that died with him, or so they thought. Now you're working for me, and they're going to wonder what you might know, what your father might have told you." My mouth went dry. "He didn't tell me anything. I barely spoke to him the last 5 years of his life. We were estranged." "I know, but they don't, or they won't believe it." His hand covered mine where it rested on the seat between us. The touch was warm, steady, grounding. "That's why you have Carlo. Why you'll have other security when needed. I meant what I said, Isa. You're under my protection now." The heat of his palm against mine sent electricity up my arm. I should have pulled away. This was my boss, a dangerous man, someone I barely knew. But instead, I found myself turning my hand over, lacing my fingers through his. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked quietly. "The job, the protection, all of it. The debt doesn't explain it. You could have just bought it and then worked out a payment plan. Why go to all this trouble?" Victor's thumb traced patterns on the back of my hand. "Do you believe in fate, Isa?" "I don't know. Maybe. I do. I believe that sometimes people are put in our paths for a reason." His dark eyes held mine. "That day in my office, when you walked in and I saw you for the first time, something shifted. Then later, when I came through that door and found you there, so completely yourself, so unconcerned with pretense or propriety, I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were going to change everything." The words hung between us, heavy with meaning I wasn't ready to examine. Carlo pulled up to my building and the spell broke. Victor released my hand, but slowly, reluctantly. "Tomorrow we'll visit the last 2 restaurants," he said, his voice returning to professional neutrality. "I'll pick you up at 9. You don't have to, personally. I want to. Simple, direct, leaving no room for argument." I gathered my bag and the folder of notes I'd accumulated. Victor? Yes? Thank you for trusting me with this, for giving me a chance to prove myself. You're the one doing me the favor, he replied. Don't ever forget that, Issa. You have power in this arrangement too. As I rode the elevator up to my apartment, I thought about power and protection, and the way his hand had felt wrapped around mine. This was getting complicated in ways I hadn't anticipated. Victor Romano was supposed to be my boss, my debt holder, the dangerous man I worked for out of necessity. He wasn't supposed to make my heart race every time he looked at me. He wasn't supposed to be thoughtful and protective and surprisingly kind. He wasn't supposed to see me, really see me, in a way no one had in years. But he did. All of it. And God help me. I was starting to want more. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a haze of restaurant visits, financial analysis, and increasingly personal conversations with Victor. He picked me up most mornings, often bringing coffee exactly how I liked it, even though I'd never told him my preference. He stayed late at my office, reviewing my findings, discussing strategies, talking about everything from business to books to childhood memories. I learned that his mother had died when he was 12, that his father had raised him to take over the family business with an iron hand and impossibly high standards. I learned that he'd wanted to be an architect once, that he still sketched buildings in his spare time, that he had a scar on his shoulder from a knife fight when he was 17. And he learned about me, about my estrangement from my father, about what had really happened at Morrison and Wade, about the loneliness that had consumed me the last 2 years, about my dreams of maybe writing a book someday, of traveling to places I'd only seen in photographs. We were building something. I just wasn't sure what. It was a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks after I'd started working for Victor, when everything shifted. I was in his office reviewing the report I'd compiled on the restaurants. He sat beside me on the couch, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. Your recommendations are excellent, he said, flipping through the pages. Implementation will increase profit margins by at least 15% across all locations within 6 months. Issa, this is brilliant work. It's what you hired me for. It's more than that. He set the report aside and turned to face me fully. You've given me solutions I wouldn't have thought of, improvements my own people missed. You're remarkable. The intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. We were alone in his office, the sun setting outside the windows, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Intimate. Too intimate. Victor, I started, but he cut me off. I can't stop thinking about you. The admission was quiet but absolute. I've tried. This is complicated. You work for me. There are 1,000 reasons this is a terrible idea. But every morning I wake up looking forward to seeing you. Every night I go to bed remembering something you said, something you did. You've gotten under my skin, Issa Bennett, and I'm not sure what to do about it. My heart hammered against my ribs. I work for you. This crosses every professional boundary there is. I know. You're dangerous. Your world is dangerous. I know that too. I should say no. I should keep this professional. You should. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. But are you going to? The rational part of my brain screamed at me to pull away, to maintain the boundaries, to protect myself. But the rest of me, the part that had been lonely for so long, the part that craved the way he saw me, the part that felt alive for the first time in years, that part won. No, I whispered. I'm not going to say no. His kiss was different than I'd imagined. Gentle at first, almost questioning, as though despite everything he'd said, he still wanted my consent. I answered by pulling him closer, by opening my mouth under his, by letting myself fall into the moment without thinking about consequences. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This changes things. I know. I'm going to want more, Issa. More time, more of you. I'm not good at casual. Neither am I. And I'm possessive. His hand slid to the back of my neck, holding me close. If we do this, if we're together, you're mine. I don't share. The declaration should have set off warning bells. It was too much, too fast, too intense. But instead, I felt something settle into place in my chest, like coming home. Okay, I heard myself say. I'm yours. The smile he gave me was fierce and triumphant, and absolutely beautiful. Say it again. I'm yours, Victor. Again. Yours, I whispered against his lips. Completely yours. This time when he kissed me, there was nothing gentle about it. It was claiming, possessive, a promise and a threat all wrapped together. And I surrendered to it willingly, knowing that I was stepping off a cliff with no idea what waited at the bottom. But for the first time in years, I didn't care. Victor Romano had awakened something in me that day in his overheated office, something brave and reckless and hungry for more than just survival. He'd seen me naked and found courage. He'd seen me vulnerable and found strength. He'd seen me completely, flaws and all, and wanted me anyway. How could I possibly say no to that? Moving into Victor's mansion wasn't a decision so much as an inevitability. After that kiss in his office, after the admission that we were together now, things progressed with the kind of speed that should have terrified me, but somehow felt natural. Stay with me, he'd said 3 days after our first kiss, as we sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city. We'd been there for dinner, which had led to kissing on his couch, which had led to his bedroom and a night that had redefined what I thought I knew about passion. Not just tonight. Stay. Move in. Victor, we've been together less than a week. I don't care about timelines. His arms tightened around me. I care about you. About having you close, keeping you safe. My estate has everything you could need. Space for an office, a library, grounds you can walk, and security that will make sure the Castellanos can't touch you. The mention of the Castellanos sent a chill through me. Marco had been making noise, according to what Victor's people had reported. Asking questions about me, about what I might know, about my relationship with Victor. The threat was subtle, but present. What about my apartment? It was a weak protest, and we both knew it. Keep it if you want, or let it go. I'll cover the lease termination if that's the issue. Issa, I need you close. It's not just about wanting you in my bed, though I certainly want that. It's about knowing you're protected. By you. By me. His hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his intense gaze. I know it's fast. I know you probably think I'm crazy, but I've never been more certain of anything. You belong with me. There was that possessiveness again, the certainty that I was his. I should have been worried about losing my independence, about being consumed by his world. Instead, I felt cherished. Okay, I said. I'll move in. His smile was brilliant. You won't regret it. I promise. The mansion was even more impressive than I'd expected. 20 minutes outside the city, set on 10 acres of meticulously landscaped grounds, it was all stone and glass and elegant architecture. Victor gave me a tour personally, showing me the formal rooms, the library that made me gasp with its floor-to-ceiling shelves, the gym, the indoor pool. This wing is private, he said, leading me down a hallway lined with family photographs. My suite, and now yours as well, though you can have your own room if you prefer. Will you be insulted if I say I'd like my own space? Not because I don't want to share yours, but because I need somewhere that's just mine? Not at all. He pushed open a door, revealing a bedroom that was both elegant and comfortable. "This connects to my suite through that door, but it's yours to do with as you please. And there's an office down the hall that I've already set up for you. Everything you need to work from home when you want." He'd thought of everything, and rather than feeling controlled, I felt valued. He was making space for me in his life, literally and figuratively, while respecting my need for independence. "It's perfect," I said honestly. "Thank you." That first week living with Victor was a revelation. I discovered that he was an early riser, up before dawn to work out in the gym. That he cooked surprisingly well, often making us breakfast while I got ready for the day. That he was affectionate in private, always finding excuses to touch me, to kiss me, to pull me close. But I also discovered the other side of his life, the part he'd promised to keep separate. Late-night phone calls taken in his office with the door closed. Meetings at the house with men whose names I didn't know and didn't ask. The way his expression would shift sometimes from the warm man I knew to someone cold and dangerous. "You're seeing it now," he said one evening, finding me in the library after one such meeting. "The other me. I've always known it was there. Knowing and seeing are different things." He sat beside me on the couch, pulling me against his side. "Is it too much? Do you want to leave?" "No." And I meant it. I knew what I was getting into, Victor. You've never hidden who you are. But you also don't ask questions about it. Why? I turned to look at him. "Because you promised I wouldn't have to be involved in that side of things, and I trust you to keep that promise. What you do in those meetings, who those men are, that's your business. I focus on the restaurants and the real estate and making sure your legitimate empire runs smoothly. And if the Castellanos make a move, if things get dangerous, then I trust you to protect me. That's what you promised, isn't it? Protection." His arms tightened around me. "Always. No matter what it costs me, Isa. I'll keep you safe." The intensity in his voice made me shiver. "I believe you. Good." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "Because I'm going to need you to trust me completely soon. Marco Castellano has agreed to meet with me, to discuss selling me that final portion of your father's debt." "Why would he do that now? He's been refusing for weeks." "Because I'm bringing you." Victor's voice was careful. "He wants to meet the daughter of Thomas Bennett, to assess whether you're a threat, to see if you know anything that could damage his family. And I'm going to let him think he's in control of the meeting while I negotiate the sale." Fear spiked through me. "Victor, I don't know anything. My father and I barely spoke." "I know, and that's what you'll tell Castellano if he asks. You'll be charming and professional and utterly convincing that Thomas Bennett's secrets died with him." "And if I'm not convincing?" His expression hardened. "Then I'll make it very clear that you're under my protection, and that any threat to you is a threat to me. But I don't think it will come to that. Marco's smart enough to know that starting a war over speculation is bad for business." "When?" "Tomorrow night. Dinner at Castellano's estate. Neutral ground, public enough to be safe." I spent the next day in a state of nervous anxiety that no amount of work could shake. Victor had his people deliver an evening gown to the house, a stunning emerald green that fit like it had been made for me, which it probably had been. "You look beautiful," he said, when I emerged from my room that evening. He was in a tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine, all sharp lines and dangerous elegance. "I'm terrified." "Don't be." He pulled me close, his hand settling at the small of my back. "I'll be right there the entire time. Nothing is going to happen to you, Isa. I swear it." The Castellano estate was similar to Victor's in size and scope, but where Victor's home felt warm despite its grandeur, Marco's felt cold. All marble and minimalist furniture and modern art that probably cost millions but lacked any sense of personality. Marco Castellano himself was perhaps 60, with silver hair and cold eyes that assessed me the moment we walked in. His wife, Teresa, was beautiful in the way that expensive maintenance creates. All designer clothes and perfect hair and a smile that never reached her eyes. "Victor," Marco said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming. And this must be Isa Bennett. Your father did excellent work for my family, my dear. His loss was a tragedy." The casual lie, pretending my father had only done legitimate work, set my teeth on edge. But I smiled and shook his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Castellano. It's kind of you to say. Please call me Marco. We're all friends here." His gaze swept over me, calculating. "Victor tells me you're working for him now, analyzing his business ventures." "That's right. I have a background in finance." "And your father never discussed his work with you? Never shared any information about his various clients?" There it was, the real purpose of this dinner. I felt Victor's hand tighten imperceptibly on my waist, a reminder that he was there. "My father and I were estranged for the last 5 years of his life," I said honestly. "We barely spoke. I knew he did accounting work, but he never discussed specifics with me." "That's a shame." Marco's smile didn't waver. "Family is so important. Don't you agree, Victor?" "Absolutely." Victor's voice was smooth. "Which is why I'm hoping we can settle this last piece of business between us. The debt you hold from Thomas Bennett, I'm prepared to purchase it at a premium. Shall we say double the original amount?" Generous. Marco led us into a formal dining room where the table was set for 4. "But I'm not sure I'm ready to sell. That debt gives me a certain leverage." "Over a dead man?" Victor's tone was mild, but I heard the steel beneath. "Over his daughter, who works for you now, who lives in your home, who is, if rumors are to be believed, much more than just your employee." The implication hung in the air. I was Victor's weakness, his vulnerability, and Marco was making it clear that he knew it. "Isa is under my protection," Victor said quietly. "Her father's debts are a matter I wish to settle out of respect for that protection. But make no mistake, Marco. Whether you sell me the debt or not, she's not at risk from you. Am I clear?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Teresa Castellano cleared her throat delicately. "Perhaps we should sit. Dinner is ready, and we can discuss business later." Dinner was excruciating, a careful dance of polite conversation and veiled threats. Marco probed about my work, about my relationship with Victor, about my father's old clients. I answered with honesty when I could, and careful evasion when I couldn't. And through it all, Victor remained a solid presence at my side, his hand occasionally finding mine under the table. It wasn't until dessert that Marco finally named his price. $5 million for the debt. And a partnership stake in one of your import companies, Victor, the one handling the Mediterranean routes. The Mediterranean routes. Even I knew those were valuable, possibly because they facilitated more than just legal imports. Victor's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's a substantial ask for a $2 million debt. Think of it as an investment in peace, in ensuring that Isa's father's legacy doesn't cause problems for any of us." Translation: pay up, or I'll use the debt as leverage to cause trouble. Victor was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes calculating. Then he smiled, cold and dangerous. "Counter offer. $3 million for the debt, plus I'll give you first option to purchase the building on 5th Avenue that you've been trying to acquire. That's worth more than the Mediterranean partnership, and it doesn't tie us together in ongoing business." Marco considered this, his fingers drumming on the table. $5 million in the building option. $4 million in the building. Final offer. Another pause. Then Marco extended his hand. "Deal. I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers." Victor shook his hand, the gesture sealing my freedom. "I'll expect them by end of week." The drive home was quiet, Victor's hand holding mine tightly. When we finally pulled through the gates of his estate, he turned to me. "Are you okay?" "I think so." That was intense. "You were perfect. Exactly the right balance of honest and cautious." He cupped my face in his hands. "And in less than a week, you'll be completely free of your father's debts. All of them." $4 million, Victor. That's so much money. "It's worth it." His thumb traced my lower lip. "You're worth it. Your peace of mind, your safety, your freedom from obligations you never chose. It's worth every penny. I don't know how to thank you. Marry me." The words hung in the air between us, shocking in their suddenness. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "Marry me." He said it again, completely serious. "I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a few weeks. But I'm certain about you, Isa. More certain than I've ever been about anything. You're it for me. The one I want to wake up next to. The one I want to build a life with. Marry me." "Victor, this is crazy. We barely know each other. I know everything that matters. I know you're brave and brilliant and kind. I know you make me want to be better than I am. I know that since you came into my life, everything has more color, more meaning. And I know that I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you." My breath caught. "You love me?" Desperately. Completely. In a way I didn't think I was capable of. His forehead rested against mine. "I understand if you need time. I understand if this is too much, too fast, but I wanted you to know where I stand. I want forever with you, Isa, if you'll have me." I thought about the past few weeks, about how Victor had upended my life in the best possible way, how he'd seen me at my most vulnerable and found strength there, how he'd given me back my career, my confidence, my sense of self-worth, how he made me feel safe and challenged and alive all at once. "Yes," I heard myself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." Vaso. The kiss he gave me was fierce and tender and full of promise. When we finally made it inside, he carried me straight to his bedroom, and we sealed our engagement in the most primal way possible. Later, wrapped in his arms with my head on his chest, I felt his hand settle on my stomach. "Someday," he murmured. "Children. A family. Everything I never thought I'd want until I met you." "Someday," I agreed, though something in my gut whispered that someday might come sooner than we thought. The wedding was a small affair, just 20 people in the library of Victor's estate, exactly 3 weeks after his proposal. We'd decided on intimate, rather than the large, showy affair that a man of Victor's position usually required. His reasoning was simple. This is about us, not about politics or alliances or showing off for the families, just us. I wore a simple ivory dress, elegant but not ostentatious, with my hair down the way Victor loved it. He stood at the makeshift altar in a charcoal suit, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. And when we said our vows, when I promised to love and cherish this dangerous, complicated, wonderful man, I meant every word. "I promise to protect you," Victor said, slipping a platinum band onto my finger. "To cherish you, to make you laugh every day, to give you the life you deserve. You are my heart, Isa. Everything I do from this day forward is for you." "I promise to stand beside you," I replied, my voice steady, despite the tears streaming down my face. "To trust you, to challenge you, to love you through whatever comes. You've given me back myself, Victor, and I give that self to you freely." When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Victor kissed me with such tenderness that several people in the small crowd actually sighed. And then it was done. I was Isa Romano, wife to the most dangerous man in the city. And I'd never been happier. The reception was held in the formal dining room, with food from all 5 restaurants we'd visited together. It was perfect, intimate, exactly what we both wanted. But what I remember most was the way Victor kept touching me. Little gestures of affection and possession. His hand at my waist, his fingers laced with mine, his lips brushing my temple. "You're really mine now," he murmured during our first dance. "Isa Romano, my wife." "And you're mine," I replied. "My husband, my partner, my love." "Forever," he promised, "no matter what comes." 3 weeks later, I discovered just how soon forever would begin. I'd been feeling off for a few days, nothing major, just tired and slightly nauseous. I'd attributed it to stress from work and the whirlwind of the wedding. But when the nausea persisted, I started counting back. The home pregnancy test I bought on a whim came back positive. So did the second one, and the third. I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at those 3 positive tests, trying to process what this meant. We'd talked about children someday, but that had seemed distant, theoretical. This was real, immediate, terrifying and wonderful all at once. "Isa?" Victor's voice came from the bedroom. "Are you okay?" I emerged from the bathroom, the test clutched in my hand. He took one look at my face and crossed to me in 3 strides. "What's wrong? Are you sick? Should I call the doctor?" In answer, I held up the tests. He stared at them, not comprehending at first. Then, understanding dawned, and his expression transformed completely. "You're pregnant." "About 6 weeks, I think. From right after I moved in." "You're pregnant," he repeated, as though he needed to say it again to make it real. Then he was laughing, sweeping me into his arms, spinning me around with such joy that I couldn't help but laugh too. "We're having a baby. Isa, we're having a baby." "Are you happy?" I asked, though his reaction made the answer obvious. "Happy? I'm ecstatic, terrified, but ecstatic." He set me down gently, his hand immediately going to my still flat stomach. "A baby. Our baby. This is perfect. You're perfect." "It's fast. We've only been married 3 weeks." "So? We knew we wanted this eventually. Now eventually is sooner. I'm not complaining." His thumb traced patterns on my stomach. "Isa Romano, you continue to amaze me." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and with it, my integration into Victor's world. The legitimate businesses thrived under my management, growing profits beyond even his optimistic projections. I hired and fired, negotiated contracts, made decisions that affected hundreds of employees. And Victor trusted me completely, giving me full authority to run things as I saw fit. But I also saw more of his other world, the way people deferred to him, the quiet meetings, the phone calls at odd hours. I never asked questions, but I understood the reality of our life. Victor Romano was powerful in ways that went far beyond legitimate business, and I was his wife, his partner in the public parts, and his sanctuary from the darker aspects. 6 months into my pregnancy, I made a decision. "I want to start a foundation," I told Victor over dinner one evening. "Using some of the profits from the restaurants, community centers, education programs, support for women leaving abusive situations, things that actually help people." Victor set down his fork, studying me. "You want to give back?" "I want to do something meaningful with the privilege we have." "You've given me everything, Victor. A career, freedom from debt, love, this baby. Let me use that to help others." "What kind of timeline are you thinking?" "Start small. One center in the neighborhood where Nona's kitchen is located. Use it as a pilot program, see what works, then expand." He was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes thoughtful. "A foundation in your name. Isa Romano Community Services. I'll fund it fully. You run it however you see fit." Victor, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. He reached across the table, taking my hand. You want to make a difference, to help people who need it. How could I possibly say no to that? Especially when it shows everyone exactly who you are, who we are as a family. It'll be expensive. I have money, Isa, more than we could spend in 3 lifetimes. Let's use it for something good. His smile was soft. Our child will grow up knowing their mother built something meaningful, helped people, made the world better. That matters to me. I moved around the table to kiss him, overwhelmed by gratitude and love. Have I told you lately that you're amazing? Tell me again anyway. You're amazing. Even when you're being an overprotective, possessive, slightly controlling mafia boss. Especially then, he corrected, pulling me into his lap carefully. His hand settled on my swollen belly, and our baby kicked against his palm. She's active tonight. She's always active when you're near. I think she recognizes your voice. Good. She should know her father. He pressed a kiss to my stomach. Hello, little one. Your mother and I are building a world for you. One that's safer, better, full of possibilities. Watching him talk to our unborn daughter, I felt something settle in my chest. This was right. All of it. The strange beginning, the fast progression, the complicated reality of our life. This was exactly where I was supposed to be. The foundation launched 2 months before my due date, and it was an immediate success. We offered after-school programs, job training, support groups, and legal aid clinics. Within weeks, the center was full, serving hundreds of people who desperately needed help. I worked up until my 37th week, when Victor finally put his foot down. You're done, he announced, finding me at my desk going over grant proposals. The baby could come any day, and you need to rest. I'm fine. You're exhausted, and our daughter is going to arrive when she's ready, whether you've finished reviewing those proposals or not. He took the papers from my hands. Delegate, Isa. That's what you have a staff for. He was right, of course. I'd been pushing myself too hard, trying to do everything myself. Okay, I'll work from home. Just emails and phone calls. Even better, you'll rest, read books, take walks in the garden, prepare for the baby. Let other people handle the day-to-day. When did you become so bossy? I've always been bossy. You just usually enjoy it. I couldn't argue with that. So I spent the last few weeks of my pregnancy in a strange kind of peaceful limbo, nesting in our home, preparing the nursery, dreaming about the life we were building. And then, on a Tuesday morning 3 days before my due date, my water broke. The labor was long and difficult. 20 hours of pain that had me cursing Victor's name more than once. But he never left my side, holding my hand, wiping my forehead, encouraging me through every contraction. You're doing amazing, he said during a particularly brutal contraction. You're the strongest person I know. I hate you, I gasped. I know. You can hate me all you want. Just keep breathing. When our daughter finally arrived, screaming her displeasure at the world, I understood for the first time what people meant by love at first sight. She was perfect, tiny, and red-faced, and absolutely perfect. A girl, the doctor announced, placing her on my chest. Congratulations. Victor's hand shook as he touched her tiny head. She's beautiful. Isa, she's so beautiful. She has your eyes, I murmured, staring at dark eyes that were already focusing on my face. Look, she's looking at you. Hello, little love, Victor whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your father, and I promise you right now, I will move heaven and earth to keep you safe, to make you happy, to give you everything good in this world. We named her Elena Rose Romano, and she changed everything. Elena was 6 months old when Marco Castellano died. A heart attack, the papers said, sudden and unexpected. But the truth, whispered through the networks Victor operated in, was different. Marco had made a move against a rival family, overstepped, and paid the price. "One less threat," Victor said when he told me, his hand gentle on my shoulder as I fed Elena in the nursery. "One less person who might have seen you as leverage against me." I looked down at our daughter, at her perfect face and trusting eyes, and understood in a way I never had before why Victor was the way he was. Why he operated in shadows, why he maintained his power so carefully, why he was ruthless when necessary. He was protecting us, his family, and he would do whatever it took to keep us safe. "I love you," I said, looking up at him. "I know you do terrible things sometimes. I know your world is dark in ways I'll never fully understand. But I also know you do it for us, for this family. Always." He knelt beside the chair, his hand covering mine where it rested on Elena's back. "Everything I do is for you two. You're my heart, Isa. Both of you. My reason for everything. We're lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "You walked into my office scared and desperate, and you gave me everything I never knew I needed. A partner, a wife, a daughter, a purpose beyond just power and control. You saved me, Isa Romano." "We saved each other," I corrected softly. As I sat there with my husband and daughter, in the nursery of our beautiful home, surrounded by safety and love and possibility, I thought about that sweltering day in Victor's office. About stripping down because the heat was unbearable. About the moment he'd walked in and seen me completely vulnerable and found courage instead of weakness. A broken air conditioner had changed my life. Such a small thing, such a random moment. But it had led to this. To everything. Elena made a small sound, already falling asleep against my chest. Victor smiled, that soft smile he reserved only for us, and carefully took her from my arms. "I'll put her down," he murmured. "You rest." I watched him settle our daughter into her crib, watched him gently stroke her dark hair, watched him stand guard over her for a long moment. This dangerous man, this powerful crime boss, reduced to absolute tenderness by a 6-month-old baby. Yes, I thought, we definitely saved each other. And I would choose him, choose this life, choose us, every single day for the rest of forever.